My wife divorced me with someone rich and came back to me after they went broke. I married my ex-wife right after we graduated from high school. College was never an option for me, so I quickly got a job doing construction and mowing lawns for a living. My body was often exhausted, and there were times when I was injured and couldn't work. My wife worked as a cashier at a local supermarket in our town. Even though I didn't make much, I tried my best to give her the best life possible. I may not have been a doctor, lawyer, or wealthy, but I did my best to take her to nicer places once in a while. Everything was fine until my ex-wife developed expensive tastes and started spending our savings on materialistic things, items that were way out of our budget and would cost us months of our salaries. We had serious arguments over this, and I always wondered what had changed. I had always known her to be a simple person until she started talking about her boss, who owned the supermarket where she worked. She constantly mentioned how he had a fancy new Mercedes that she always wanted, and how he even gave her a ride in it. I didn't think much of it at first until I began to suspect she was cheating on me. I lied and told her I was visiting my cousins in another state for a few days. I ended up renting a motel for the next 2 days and returned home in the middle of the night, only to see an unfamiliar car parked in our driveway. I quietly walked inside, and my heart sank as soon as I saw clothes on the floor and the wine bottles we kept opened on our kitchen counter. I continued to walk toward our bedroom and saw the door half opened, revealing them lying naked together while they slept. I quickly left and ran back to my car. I broke down crying and sighed for hours before driving to my parents' house. The next day, I returned and confronted her. I told her that I knew she had cheated and that I wanted a divorce. She looked at me silently and sighed with relief. She told me that she had been waiting for this day. She said I couldn't provide her with the lifestyle she had always dreamed of, and she needed to be with someone who could give her everything she wanted. Her boss was that person. I was shattered and heartbroken, but I kept my composure and told her she needed to be out by tomorrow morning, and that I would send her the divorce papers. I moved back home with my parents, where I fell into depression for the next 3 to 5 months. During that time, my ex-wife would post about going on trips and living the life she'd always wanted with her boss. I decided to channel my anger and frustration into working harder at my job. The next 3 to 5 years were brutal, and it felt like my body was giving up. My expenses decreased, and I managed to save almost all of my money. In the end, I became a project manager and started talking to different clients. I was making more than 6 figures, but I wanted more. I left the company with 2 of my buddies from work, and we started our own construction company using the savings I had accumulated over the past 8 years. Fast forward to recently, and I now own a couple of properties and plazas that are up for rent. I was looking through my email when I saw my ex-wife's name on the list of clients, along with her boss's last name. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more. My wife divorced me with someone rich and came back to me after they went broke. I saw my ex-wife's name, now carrying the last name of her boss. I dug deeper and found out that they were my tenants in a small apartment complex I owned in the rougher part of the city. I usually have a property manager, but sometimes I go through all my properties to ensure everything is in order. I decided to visit that complex, especially since many of my tenants had been complaining about their washers and dryers. I drove there with the maintenance team and started pointing out what needed to be fixed and replaced. That's when I saw my ex-wife holding her laundry basket as she walked in, asking if the washer and dryer were ready to use. She saw me, recognized me, and called my name. She asked what I was doing there, assuming I was there as maintenance. My worker laughed and said, "Him? He's our boss," as he continued working. She looked at me and continued the conversation. She asked how I became rich, and I replied that I just ended up being lucky. I told her I owned a construction company and multiple properties, including the complex she lives in. She looked disappointed and told me that ever since we broke up, her life has been on a downward spiral. I asked if she was married, and she lied, saying no. I asked what happened to the guy she left me for, and she told me his supermarket went bankrupt after he developed a gambling addiction. She then asked if I was single and suggested we go to dinner together. I laughed, but she said she was serious, and that I could finally give her the things she always wanted. She claimed she was giving me a chance to redeem myself for the past, and I burst out laughing. I told her that I'm happily married and showed her my ring. I also told her to go fuck off and called her a gold digger. My workers started giggling, and some of them began talking among themselves about what they had just heard. It felt good to finally call her a gold digger after all this time. Not to mention, her life turned upside down for being greedy,